Hi folks, and this video today is coming from halfway through my run while I try and gather strength to do the uphill section on what is an absolutely glorious summer's day. And it is dedicated to all of those of you who ever had or might even be right now dealing with frustration and resentment at having a lot of unreasonable demands from your manager and really wanting to understand how to manage upwards more effectively. And I have 3 tips for you. But let's just start with understanding where that desire to manage upwards comes from. So typically it's because there is a lack of alignment between you and them regarding the goals that you have to achieve, the resources allocated to do that, or even the methodology that you're required to use. So it is essentially a conflict situation. So here are my top 3 tips for dealing with that kind of conflict. Number 1, the fundamental principle is that you can't change what you don't really understand. It's very easy to forget that your manager's human, but they are, and they'll have their own stresses and their own priorities, some of which you may well not be aware of. So the first thing you have to do is uncover those. And a really good way of doing that is to ask them a question about their personal view on things. So for example, let's say that you've been banging your head against a brick wall on the question of goals, and you're running that scenario that says, are they not getting that this goal is inappropriate because they're too stupid to get it, or they're a complete wimp and don't want to rock the boat? What is it? Just ask them, and ask them like this. Say, hey, you know what? I know we've discussed this subject of goals on a number of times, but what I'd really like to hear about is your personal take on it. Why do you think it's important? What resonates with you about it, and where does it sit with your priorities? But you've got to ask that question from the right place. You have to ask it from what I call standing in the question. And that means you're asking it with a genuine desire to learn, not in any kind of judgment or looking for an opportunity to respond. Because if you do that, that will come across. But do it in the right way, and you will find you will immediately start to build empathy, a sense of commonality, an openness to ideas. And you may even find that you have an ally, because they may not be that excited about the goal either, but they might have felt previously that they had a responsibility not to discuss that. So, and the worst thing that can happen, which is also a good thing in a way, is that you find out that that goal is completely non-negotiable, in which case you have a different set of decisions to make. So that's my first tip. My second tip is to reframe the way that you think about the problem. It's very easy in those situations to think that your manager is the problem. And in actual fact, that's very rarely the case. So what you want to do is create a space that reframes that way of thinking, so it becomes you and your manager versus the problem. And you want to do that for them too, because they may well be thinking that you're the problem. So you don't want them to be in that space. So how do you do that? Well, one way of doing that is every time you talk about the issue, put the emphasis on it being a joint problem requiring joint solutions. So let's say that you feel like that you don't have enough resources to tackle a particular goal that you're being asked to do. You can say things like, look, this resource thing is a real issue. I know it's an issue for me, but I can see it's also an issue for you, because if it wasn't, you would have given me the resources. So let's see if there's some kind of joint way that we can solve this. I'd be really interested to know what kind of solutions that you think. And long term, it's the same thing. It creates mutual understanding, empathy, and creativity. And that's extremely important. It engenders a flexibility of thinking, because the truth is, if you are in an antagonistic situation where you both see each other as a problem, no solution will ever emerge. You will just get completely and utterly stuck, and it'll be a profoundly frustrating and disheartening experience for both of you. And my third solution is play to your manager's strengths. And again, that can be quite challenging, especially if their strength is the absolute opposite of yours. So for example, methodology. I'm a long-term thinker, and I have had managers whose entire focus has been on the minutiae, and that's affected their approach to problems, and it has absolutely driven me up the wall. And then one day the light bulb went on for me, and I realized it would be a lot more helpful and less frustrating for me to see that as actually helpful. So with this particular manager that I was experiencing, when I shifted my thinking to that, I was able to see the advantages of it, and think, next time I get to talk about this idea with a senior manager, I am never, ever going to get caught out on anything to do with the detail again, because my God, I will have gone round that mill 3 times at least before. So that's my top 3 tips for getting rid of that frustration and resentment, so you can come out on glorious sunny days like this and just enjoy them without any of that stuff floating around in the back of your mind. Have a great day.